Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it? So I want you to picture yourself sitting at a small cafe table right now.
Okay, I'm there.
Yeah, and the table is set on these like intricate black and white cobblestones. You order an espresso, and when the bill comes, it's under $1.
Which is almost unheard of now.
Right. Completely unheard of. And you look up, and your view is a perfectly preserved 16th century palace on one side, and then the lush green slopes of a dormant volcano on the other.
Sounds incredible.
It is. And the craziest part is this isn't some, flashback to European travel in 1995. This is right now. Today, our mission for this deep dive is entirely focused on a place called Terceira.
Yeah, Terceira. It's really something else.
It really is. If you're looking at a map of the Azores, it's that mid-Atlantic island sitting quietly right in the center of the archipelago. And honestly, most people instinctively skip it.
Oh, for sure. They go straight past it.
Exactly. You open Instagram or any travel vlog right now, and the algorithm is just hammering you with footage of its neighbor, São Miguel. But here's the thing about Terceira. Finding this island right now is like discovering a genuinely life-changing indie band right before they sign a massive multi-million-dollar record deal.
Like right before the stadium tours start.
Yes. It has all the magic, all the soul, a fraction of the cost, but, the clock is loudly ticking. So we're going to lay out exactly what we are covering today in this deep dive.
We've got a lot of ground to cover.
We really do. We are walking through 11 essential areas of this island's profile, from the contrarian value proposition to the weather, the arrival logistics.
The accommodation ladder, which is huge.
Right. The accommodation, the food, the budget, the specific traps that will ruin your trip, safety, the absolute highs and lows, the alternatives, and finally, the ultimate verdict. And we are backing this up with every single fact, every price point, and every brutal logistical reality from our dossier.
And that level of comprehensive detail is critical. Because what this deep dive represents for you listening right now is, it's a shortcut.
A total shortcut.
Yeah, it is a blueprint to avoid the over-touristed, heavily inflated traps that are currently plaguing so much of mainland Europe and, honestly, even parts of the Azores. What we are really examining today is how to capitalize on a very fleeting window of travel value.
Right, because that window is definitely closing.
Exactly. We're looking at a destination where the local economy and the visitor economy have not yet fundamentally diverged. Understanding how this island operates, its pacing, its costs, its distinct seasons, it gives you the leverage to experience something profoundly authentic before the global algorithm inevitably changes its landscape forever.
So let's get right into the core argument here. Why Terceira, and why does the trip have to happen right now? Because, there are plenty of cheap places to visit in the world, but we're making a much bigger claim today.
We are, and it's a contrarian claim, for sure. But the data backs it up completely. This is not just tourism board marketing fluff. Terceira, at this exact moment in time, is the best value UNESCO-listed destination in the entire Atlantic. When you look at the raw numbers, they almost defy modern economic logic.
They really do.
We are talking about a UNESCO World Heritage City Angra do Heroísmo. You can sit down for a massive plate of slow-cooked local beef, which is their equivalent to the famous cozida das fernas that you find on São Miguel.
Oh, yeah.
And you are paying just $12 for it.
$12? That's insane.
Right. And if you want to stay in a heritage boutique guest house, right in the center of all that history, it starts around $85 a night.
Which is just staggering when you compare it to the heavy hitters of European heritage tourism. You look at a place like Dubrovnik in Croatia, and you are easily shelling out $200 a night for a room that barely has any original character left.
It's been flipped so many times.
Exactly, flipped a dozen times for tourists. Or you look at Valletta in Malta, and the mid-range market there has blown right past $160 a night. Terceira is just operating in a completely different universe of value.
It really is.
But I think people picture a remote mid-Atlantic island, and they expect, a few rugged fishing villages, maybe some whaling history. They don't expect sprawling palaces. Why is there so much monumental architecture out there in the middle of the ocean?
Well, that is where the geography and the history deeply intertwine. Terceira is the third largest island in the Azores. It's about 400 square kilometers, with a population hovering around 56,000.
Okay, so relatively small.
Yeah, but the crucial piece of context is the year 1534. That is when Angra do Heroísmo was founded, making it the very first city in the Azores. If you zoom out and look at the global age of discovery, the mechanics of sailing required ships to catch specific winds and currents.
So they basically had to stop there.
Exactly. For decades, Angra was the mandatory stopping point for the massive galleons crossing between Europe, the Americas, and the incredibly lucrative spice routes of the East.
So it was essentially the ultimate mid-ocean toll booth.
That's a great way to put it.
All that wealth, all those ships laden with silver from the Americas and, spices from India, they all had to drop anchor in this one specific bay to resupply.
Precisely. And that concentration of global wealth translates directly into architecture that punches way, way above what you would ever expect from a small island. You aren't just looking at fishing shacks.
Right? You've got palaces.
You have massive stone sea forts, sprawling convents, elaborate palaces built by aristocrats. You walk down these streets, and they are paved with embedded black and white volcanic basalt cobbles.
Wow.
The central square, Praça Vella, is a massive, highly designed architectural space. It was built specifically to project power and wealth on a global scale to anyone pulling into that harbor.
But it's not just the human history that's operating on a massive scale. The Earth itself is putting on a show. And we have to talk about the volcanic reality of this place.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a site called Algar do Carvão for $7. $7. You can literally walk inside a volcanic lava tube and stand inside a former magma chamber.
Which is just wild to think about.
I've looked at similar geological experiences globally, and if you go to Iceland or Hawaii to do something like this, you are looking at upwards of $50, sometimes well over $100.
And it usually involves intense abseiling gear or signing a massive insurance waiver.
Right. Here, you just pay your $7 and walk down a staircase into the center of the Earth.
The price-to-experience ratio is unmatched. But this brings us to the tension of our deep dive, the ticking clock. The infrastructure connecting this island to the rest of the world is rapidly shifting.
Okay, how so?
Well, Azores Airlines is now running direct flights from Boston to Terceira, landing at Lajes Airport, with fares starting at an incredibly low $278 one way.
That's practically domestic pricing.
Exactly. They're also running seasonal direct flights from Toronto. And it's not just the airlines. You have major publications like The Guardian and Condé Nast, plus all the major travel YouTube channels right now in 2025 and 2026, shining a massive spotlight on the over-tourism issues in São Miguel. And what is the alternative they all point to in the very next paragraph? Terceira.
Wait, hold on. If Condé Nast and The Guardian are already publishing breathless features about it, and the big YouTubers are already wandering around Angra with their drones, hasn't this ship sailed? If the secret is out, how on earth have the prices not spiked yet?
Because of the mechanics of modern travel economics, there is almost always a lag. Think of it like seeing a flash of lightning and then waiting for the thunder.
Okay, I like that analogy.
The media attention is the lightning.
Well,
But there is usually an 18 to 24-month lag before the algorithm-driven price hikes, the thunder, actually hit the ground. The physical infrastructure of a place takes time to adjust to hype.
right. They don't just change the menus overnight.
Exactly. Hotel owners don't instantly triple their rates the day a magazine article drops. They wait until their occupancy hits 95% for a full year. The incredible thing about Terceira right now is that you can see the lightning, but the thunder hasn't arrived.
So we're in the sweet spot.
We really are. Accommodation prices haven't moved yet. Restaurant menus haven't been reprinted with inflated tourist prices. The physical crowds of people with selfie sticks are not yet clogging the streets. The algorithm is pointing a fire hose of attention this way, but the resulting inflation hasn't materialized yet.
That lightning and thunder analogy makes perfect sense. We are sitting in that eerie, quiet gap. So we know why it's valuable, but grabbing that value requires absolute precision.
Oh, absolutely.
You can't just throw a dart at a calendar and expect a perfect trip. Knowing exactly which month to book is the difference between a dream trip and a damp, miserable logistical nightmare.
Absolutely. To understand the timing, you first have to understand the sheer isolation of the geography. Terceira sits in the North Atlantic, about 1,500 kilometers west of Lisbon.
Way out there.
Yeah, to give you a sense of scale, it is 4 time zones of longitude away from Sydney, Australia. That's why Australian or Asian visitors almost always end up routing through London or Lisbon just to get there. Now, the climate is officially classified as subtropical. That means it is mild year-round, it is vibrantly, genuinely green, and it is highly prone to massive cloud cover and sudden rain, especially at higher altitudes.
And this is where I see people get totally tripped up. First-timers look at a map, they see an island technically governed by Portugal, and they mistakenly expect Mediterranean dryness.
Right. They pack for the Algarve.
Exactly. They expect the Algarve, or Ibiza, they pack linen shirts and swimsuits, and then they get genuinely confused and angry when the interior of the island completely clouds over with mist by midday in July.
It's a fundamental misunderstanding of geology. It is a volcanic island sitting alone in the middle of a massive ocean. It catches every passing weather system, and its mountains literally create their own microclimates.
That makes total sense.
So let's break down the calendar so you know exactly what to expect. June through September is your peak season. Angra do Heroísmo is at its warmest, sitting comfortably in the low to mid-20s Celsius. This is the prime window for marine life, particularly when the massive blue whales are passing through, which is a massive global draw. You also have the San Joaninus Festival, which hits in late June.
Right, the big street party.
Yeah. It spans nearly 2 weeks and includes traditional rope bullfighting, street music, and all these cultural events.
Uh-huh.
But, predictably, this is the most expensive window. Mid-range hotels in Angra will run you $120 to $180 a night.
Which is still not terrible compared to the mainland.
No, but it's peak for them. Return flights from London are hovering around $700 to $800. And if you want to go for the San Joaninus Festival, you need to book your accommodation 3 months out minimum.
I look at those numbers and I have to wonder, is a local festival really worth paying peak summer prices? Or should I just hold out for the shoulder season to save the cash?
It entirely depends on what you're trying to get out of the trip. If you want high-energy cultural immersion, San Joaninus is spectacular. The entire city is alive, the balconies are draped in decorations, there are parades, and music echoes off those 16th century walls late into the night. It's a vibrant, communal celebration of their identity.
Sounds amazing.
It is, but if you are seeking that quiet, misty, introspective magic of the mid-Atlantic, then you absolutely want to wait for the October to November window. This is the absolute sweet spot.
Paint the picture of that sweet spot. What are the conditions actually like?
So the temperatures drop slightly, settling into a very comfortable 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. The peak summer crowds, whatever small amount there was, have entirely vanished.
Nice.
You can still go out on the water for whale watching, but now instead of passing blue whales, you're observing the resident sperm whales and massive playful pies of common dolphins in these incredibly quiet silver waters.
That sounds incredibly peaceful.
And the economics shift dramatically in your favor. Those mid-range hotels drop from $180 back down to $85 to $120 a night. Yeah, and those direct flights from Boston drop to that $278 one-way floor, which is the absolute cheapest window we found in the data. London return flights fall nicely to $580 to $620. An October morning in Terceira, with the mist slowly rolling off the slopes of Monte Brazil while you drink a coffee in Praça, it's visually unmatched.
And then, inevitably, we hit the quiet season, December through February.
Right. This is when the prices completely bottom out. Mid-range accommodation plummets to $60 to $85 a night. A dedicated budget traveler can comfortably survive on a total daily budget of just $55 to $65.
That is dirt cheap.
But you are trading your cash savings for challenging weather. You will see a lot of persistent gray skies. The heavy driving rains mean the interior hiking trails are often closed by authorities for safety due to mudslides.
Right, that's a huge factor.
And the whale watching departures are significantly reduced because the sea states are just too rough for the small boats. Many of the smaller family-run restaurants in Angra simply cut back their hours or close for a month to take their own holidays.
Bringing it back to the over-tourism risk we mentioned earlier, with all this hype, are the physical streets of Angra going to be completely overrun in the next year or two? Like Venice or Santorini?
No, and that's a very important structural distinction to make. Remember, the history Angra do Heroísmo was built to accommodate thousands of sailors, merchants, and soldiers centuries ago.
Right, it was a global hub.
Exactly. Because of that, it has wide, sweeping streets, a huge natural bay, and multiple distinct neighborhoods. It can physically absorb thousands of walking bodies, much better than the tight, narrow medieval cities you find in mainland Europe.
That makes a lot of sense.
The true risk over the next 18 to 24 months isn't that you won't be able to physically walk down the sidewalk. The risk is the rapid price compression and the loss of that raw, local authenticity as the overflow crowds from São Miguel arrive and demand generic tourist amenities.
So we know the best time to go to maximize value. Let's fast forward to the actual trip. What exactly do you experience the moment you step off that plane?
Well, you are going to land at Lajes Airport, Aeroporto das Lajes. It sits on this northeastern, relatively flat section of the island, right near a coastal town called Praia de Vitoria.
Okay.
The very first sensory impact, the moment you walk out of the terminal, is visual. It's the green. It is not that manicured, decorative green of a golf resort in the Mediterranean. It is a dense, heavy, almost aggressive volcanic green that only happens when you combine centuries of steady Atlantic rainfall with incredibly mineral-rich volcanic soil.
And the hydrangeas. I was completely obsessed when I read this in the dossier. The hydrangeas aren't just little decorative bushes planted in front of someone's porch. They act as massive, kilometer-long field boundaries.
It's one of the most fascinating examples of agricultural adaptation in the world. On a rocky volcanic island, resources like wood or wire are historically scarce or expensive to import.
Sure.
So you use what naturally thrives to delineate your property. The hydrangeas grow so vigorously in that highly acidic soil that farmers centuries ago began planting them instead of building laborious stone walls or buying fences.
That is so smart.
Right. So today you have these vibrant, towering blue and purple hedgerows carving up the entire interior of the island into this geometric patchwork. Visually, it is unlike anything else in the Atlantic.
Now, regarding the airport itself, I'm a deeply anxious traveler when it comes to arrivals. I'm always bracing for chaos, long lines, aggressive taxi touts. But Lajes is supposed to be remarkably calm.
It is incredibly calm, it is small, it is highly functional, and there's zero baggage carousel drama. You land, you wait a few minutes, you get your bag, and you walk straight out the door.
That sounds like a dream.
But here is the critical logistics point that catches people off guard. You are going to take a taxi to Angra do Heroísmo, which is on the other side of the island. That ride will cost you between $25 and $30 and take exactly 25 minutes.
Wait, hold on. A European destination with a major commercial airport handling international flights from Boston and London, and there is no synced public bus waiting outside the terminal to take people to the main city? How does that even happen?
It happens because the island's infrastructure is still designed for locals, not for an influx of tourists.
Oh, right.
There is no direct public shuttle bus timed to connect with flight arrivals. The public buses that do exist run on municipal schedules for people going to work or school. We are going to dig much deeper into why this is a massive trap later on, but for now, the takeaway is simple. You must mentally and financially budget for that taxi, or have your rental car already booked and waiting.
Got it.
Speaking of which, picking up a car rental right from the airport will run you $35 to $45 a day in the shoulder season, and it spikes to about $55 to $70 a day during the July and August peak.
All right, so you pay the $30, you take the 25-minute drive across the island, and you pull into Angra do Heroísmo. What is the feeling of that arrival moment?
It is deeply cinematic. As the road drops down into the city, the harbor is perfectly framed by these two dramatic volcanic hills, Monte Brasil and Pico das Cruzinhas.
Amazing.
You can immediately see the old stone sea forts standing guard right on the waterfront, exactly where they've been for hundreds of years. You step out of the car onto these genuinely intact cobbled streets, and I want to emphasize these are continuously inhabited real streets.
It's not a museum.
No, this is not a Disney-fied or roped-off restoration project purely for tourists. People live here. You walk into Praça Velha, see that towering 16th century town hall, and there was just this immediate, undeniable, unhurried pace to the whole environment.
The sensory details in the notes are amazing, like the smell of the strong espresso mixing with the heavy mineral salt air rolling off the harbor. You can almost feel your shoulders physically drop within the first hour of being there.
Oh, completely.
The mental reset is instantaneous because the city simply refuses to rush for you. So the bags are out of the taxi, we smell the salt air. Where are we sleeping? Because looking at the data, the accommodation landscape here is broken into 4 very distinct traveler types.
Let's start with the budget and backpacker tier, looking at $45 to $65 a night. The landscape here is vastly different from what you'd find on São Miguel or the mainland.
How so?
Well, Terceira is fundamentally a guest house format island. It is not a social hostel island. You have excellent places like Casa de Sé, right near the Grand Cathedral, where you can get a private room starting around $50 a night.
That's a great deal.
Or residential Beira-Mar, which gives you a basic, incredibly clean double room starting at $55, and that rate actually includes a local breakfast. There are a handful of single hostel beds scattered around the old town for 25 to 35, but they are pretty rare.
If there is no massive social hostel infrastructure, is this island going to feel profoundly lonely for, like, a solo backpacker in their 20s?
That entirely depends on your expectations. If you are arriving expecting a raucous, neon-lit common room with a pool table where you can instantly find 5 people to split a rental car and do a pub crawl with, yes, you will be deeply
Well,
disappointed.
the vibe is totally different.
The budget scene here is much quieter. You're going to be interacting more with the elderly guest house owners than with hordes of other 20-something backpackers. But here is the deeper mechanism at play. The lack of mega hostels and massive cheap resorts is exactly the economic filter that has naturally protected the island's culture from mass, destructive tourism so far.
So it's a feature, not a bug. Okay, let's step up to the mid-range traveler, which is sitting at $90 to $145 a night. And this is where the raw data genuinely shocked me.
This is where Terceira's value proposition absolutely crushes the rest of Western Europe. You have Hotel Angra sitting right in the historic center with direct, unobstructed harbor views running 95 to 130 depending on the month.
Beautiful.
Hotel Barramar, also on the waterfront, is 110 to 140. Or look at Vivenda da Sauda. It's this beautifully maintained period bed and breakfast right in the heart of the old town. $90 a night gets you a gorgeous double room with historic details and an excellent local breakfast spread.
For $90, try finding a beautifully maintained period B&B in Lisbon's Alfama district right now for $90.
Good luck with that.
You'd be lucky to get a basement room with a shared bathroom. What about families who need more space?
For families budgeting 160 to 220 a night, the best strategy is to shift out of the dense city center and into the rural interior.
Okay.
Pico de Vigia agrotourism is a perfect example of this. For 155 to 175, you get a genuine, high-quality farm stay experience. You have massive amounts of space, direct access to volcanic walking trails right out your front door, and incredible local food sourced directly from the property.
That sounds perfect for kids.
It really is. There are also several quincas, these old, sprawling, aristocratic estate properties that offer self-catering cottages for a family of 4 for 160 to 200 a night. Having that kitchen access dramatically changes the food budget mechanics for a family.
And finally, the luxury tier, which sits at $230 to $350 a night. But we need to clarify what luxury actually means on this specific island, because it's not what people conditioned by global resort chains might expect.
Exactly. You have to recalibrate your definition of luxury.
Yeah.
There are no sprawling resort complexes here. No massive infinity pools overlooking private white sand beaches with staff bringing you cocktails every 15 minutes.
So what are you paying for?
Luxury on Terceira is defined by deep heritage, profound intimacy, and architectural location. The pinnacle of this is the Pousada de Angra de Heroísmo. It is a stunningly converted historic convent sitting right in the heart of the UNESCO Old Town.
Wow.
It only has 23 rooms, a serene private courtyard garden, and the rates run $240 to $350. You are paying for the privilege of sleeping in a meticulously restored piece of global history.
That distinction between resort luxury and heritage luxury is so critical for managing expectations. Like, if you want a swim-up bar and a massive spa menu, you're on the wrong island and you will leave a bad review.
100%.
But if you want to drink a local vintage wine in a 16th century courtyard while the cathedral bells toll in the distance, it's absolute paradise. Now, once the bags are dropped at the guest house or the convent, you need to eat. And there is one dish, one specific culinary event that you absolutely cannot skip while on Terceira.
We are talking about alcatra. It is not optional. It is the absolute culinary anchor of the entire island. It is technically a slow-braised beef stew, but calling it a beef stew hardly does justice to the cultural weight it carries. It is cooked low and slow for hours and hours in these specific, unglazed clay pots.
And it's the ingredients going into that pot that tell the story of the island, right? You've got the incredible local beef, the wine, the onions. But then there's the distinct use of allspice and the bay leaf. When you taste that heavy allspice, you are literally tasting the history of those spice route galleons we talked about earlier.
That's a brilliant way to look at it. The clay pot itself, the heavy spices, the wine, it's a dish born out of the collision of maritime trade routes and robust local agricultural abundance. and every single traditional restaurant in Angra serves it.
Okay, what does it cost?
Here's the most remarkable economic mechanism at play, which we use as our stable local currency metric. A massive, generous main course of alcatra, served with thick local bread, will cost you between 11 to 14 euros.
Which is what, like 12 to 15 US dollars?
Exactly. And that specific price point has not moved meaningfully in years. In an era of rampant, out-of-control global inflation, the fact that this anchor dish has remained so perfectly accessible is a testament to who these restaurants are actually serving. They are serving local families, not gouging tourists.
A $15 perfectly spiced, slow-cooked beef stew sounds amazing. But let's look at the mechanics of actually getting that dinner. Let's say I've had a long day of hiking the volcano, I'm absolutely starving, and I just want a quick dinner at 6 p.m. so I can hit the town and get to bed early. How's that going to work out for me?
You're going to be very lonely, very confused, and very hungry.
Oh, no.
Terceira moves at its own cultural pace, and mainland American or Northern European dining rules do not apply here. Lunch is strictly observed between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. Dinner does not even begin to start until 7 p.m. onwards.
Wow, okay.
If you arrogantly walk into a restaurant before 7:30 p.m. expecting full service, the chairs might still be stacked on the tables. The staff will be eating their own family meal, and you will absolutely be the only customer in the room.
Oh.
There's no concept of a rushed 45-minute dining turnaround here. You sit down, you order the local wine, and you wait for the alcatra.
I want everyone listening to picture the sensory experience of this. You walk into a local tasca, these small, heavily traditional taverns, at 8 p.m. The windows are slightly steamed up from the kitchen heat. It's loud with rapid-fire Portuguese conversation, and the rich smell of braised beef, garlic, and wine is just overwhelming.
That's the best feeling.
Compare that authentic warmth to sitting alone in a brightly lit, empty tourist trap cafe at 6 p.m. eating a dry club sandwich just because you couldn't wait. You have to adapt your stomach to the island's rhythm. And those tascas are incredibly cheap across the border, right?
Very. A full two-course lunch with wine at a local tasca will run you just $14 to $18 per person. And if you are taking the family route and self-catering, or if you just want to grab high-quality snacks, the grocery situation is incredibly solid.
Good to know.
You have two main supermarket chains, Continente and Intermarché. The prices are totally insulated from resort inflation. In USD, you're looking at $1.20 for a liter of rich local milk, about $1 for a fresh loaf of bakery bread, and $2.80 for a full dozen eggs. A bottle of incredibly good local red wine, grown on volcanic soil, is $4 to $7.
Wow.
And a massive liter-and-a-half bottle of water is just 70 cents.
We absolutely have to mention the cheese, too, the Queovaquinha.
Oh, you cannot leave without trying it.
Yeah.
It is the island's famous, slightly sharp, buttery cow's milk cheese. At the local supermarket, a 500-gram wheel is about $5 to $6. But you really should drive out to visit the actual Queijaria dairy in the island's green interior.
That sounds like a great trip.
They offer free tastings, you can see the production process, and you can buy it directly at the source for about $4 for a 500-gram wheel. Oh, and a quick mechanical note on tipping. It is appreciated, but it is not a mandatory, heavily pressured part of the wage structure like it is in the States. Leaving 5 to 10% at a sit-down place is the standard, polite local norm.
Okay, so these individual line item prices are fantastic. But how does this all synthesize? What does the actual daily burn rate look like for our listener once they are on the ground? Let's run the out-of-pocket numbers.
Let's start with the backpacker budget. You can comfortably do this island for $55 to $70 a day. That breaks down to a shared guest house room for $30 to $45. Breakfast at a local cafe, which usually means tall galone coffee and a flaky pastel de nata, is just $2.50. A hearty tasca lunch is $10 to $12.
Okay, tracking.
A major paid activity, like entering the Algar do Carvão volcano, is $7. Dinner is $14 to $18, and an evening drink is $3 or $4.
But looking closely at those numbers, there is a massive economic trapdoor hidden in that budget, isn't there? The car.
Yes. Renting a car instantly blows that backpacker budget out of the water. If you rent a car for $40 a day, your daily burn rate shoots straight up to $95 to $110. To keep it strictly under $75, you have to rely entirely on the island's public buses, which means you are moving much more slowly.
Let's explore that constraint. If the backpacker relies solely on buses to save money and refuses to rent a car, are they essentially going to miss half the island?
They will absolutely miss the spontaneity and the deep interior of the island, yes. The public buses efficiently serve the coastal towns and villages because that's where the locals live and work.
Right.
You cannot easily take a municipal bus to a remote, misty trailhead in the volcanic islands. You have to be strategic. Perhaps you suffer the cost and rent a car for just 2 days out of your week to hit the remote interior spots and use the cheap buses the rest of the time. Now, stepping up to the mid-range budget, which sits at 120 to 160 per person per day,
This feels like the absolute sweet spot to me. This is where the value truly shines.
it is the strongest argument for the island. A hotel half share is 55 to 75. Breakfast is 5. A fantastic lunch is 15 to 20. You have the financial breathing room for a major premium activity like a $70 whale watching tour.
Nice.
A spectacular dinner is 20 to 28, plus 8 to 12 for evening drinks. Splitting a rental car with your partner adds 20 to 25. So a comprehensive 4-night trip for 2 people, excluding the flights, is going to cost you about $960 to $1,240 on the ground.
That's incredible.
Think about the mechanics of what 120 a day actually gets you in Western Europe right now. In Paris or London, that is a bleak, highly stressful experience where you are constantly checking your bank app. Here, it buys you genuine historic character, top-tier wildlife activities, and phenomenal local food.
And what does it look like for a family of 4?
You're looking at a daily burn of 280 to 380. The family room or cottage is 155 to 180. Meals are 80 to 100 if you smartly mix self-catering from the local markets with eating out at Tascas. Activities are 50 to 70, and the larger family rental car is 40 to 50.
Which is very reasonable.
If you lean heavily into self-catering using that excellent local produce, you can easily pull that down to 240 to 270 a day. To put it in perspective, a full 7-night trip for a family of 4 from the UK, including those $700 return flights per person totals out between $5,000 and $6,000. That is materially objectively cheaper than taking that same family to the packed resorts of the Algar or Crete in peak summer.
And the luxury tier. We already established it's not a mega resort vibe, but what is the actual daily spend for heritage luxury?
You are looking at 380 to 500 a day. You have the premium pousada room at 280 to 350. You're eating high-end a la carte twice a day at 40 to 60 per person. You might bypass the group tours and book a private whale-watching charter for 180 to 220 for 2 people. It's an incredibly intimate, slow form of premium travel. Finally, we have the digital nomad monthly budget.
Let's hear it. Because there are a lot of remote workers out there right now desperately looking for the next Madeira before it gets too expensive.
For a nomad, you will spend $1,900 to $2,400 a month. By the way, Terceira is fully eligible for Portugal's D8 visa. That's the specific digital nomad visa that allows you to reside there legally if you can prove a stable remote income.
Oh, that's huge.
A fully furnished apartment in Angra or Praia da Vitória is $700 to $950. Groceries will run $200 to $280. Eating out a few times a week is $250 to $320. Dedicated co-working spaces are minimal, so budget 0 to 80 there. Renting a moped for the month to get around is about $180 to $220. The island has excellent, highly stable fiber broadband, but the caveat is that the social scene is practically non-existent.
I think that lack of a sprawling, established digital nomad scene makes this a true focuses retreat. You aren't coming to Terceira to network at generic tech mixers every night or go to crypto meetups on the beach. You are coming here to write a novel, code an app in peace, and hike a volcano in absolute silence.
Exactly.
But as good as all this budgeting looks on paper, it instantly falls apart the minute you hit the ground and get completely derailed by island reality. We need to walk through the 3 specific named logistics traps that catch visitors out every single week.
These are critical. Trap number 1. The largest airport to Angra public transport assumption. The mechanism here is simple but devastating. Laje's airport is in the northeast. The main city, Angra, is on the south coast, 25 kilometers away. Visitors land, knowing that mainland Portugal has fantastic, cheap public transport, and they assume there will be a cheap shuttle bus idling outside the terminal waiting to take them to their hotel.
And when they walk out the sliding doors, the reality hits them like a ton of bricks.
Because the reality is that the island's bus network, operated by a company called Sada, is designed strictly for municipal use. It moves locals to the hospital or kids to school. It is not timed to commercial flight arrivals.
Yeah.
If you arrive at 6 p.m. on a Sunday evening, there are 0 buses going to Angra.
Oh, wow.
You are entirely stranded unless you take a taxi. The fix is remarkably simple. Acknowledge the logistical reality, budget $25 to $30 for that taxi rank, or pre-book your rental car to pick up at the airport. Do not walk out of arrivals expecting a €2 tourist bus.
Track number 2 is my absolute favorite because it is so uniquely dangerously Azorean. The single road island and the cloud.
This is a classic geographic trap.
Hmm.
The coast road, known as the EN11A, is perfectly easy to navigate. It calmly circles the island. The weather at sea level is usually clear. It's a breeze. But the interior roads, the steep, winding paths that take you up into the volcanic highlands around places like Serra de Santa Barbara and the Misterios Negros Trail, are a completely different beast.
Right.
They are narrow, they often don't show up reliably on generic car hire GPS systems, and the volcanic microclimate means visibility can literally drop to 0 in a matter of minutes.
I have to challenge this, though. I use live Google Maps on my phone everywhere I go in the world. Why on earth do I need to download offline maps on a modern, populated European island in 2026?
Because of how the topography interferes with the cell towers. When you drive up into the steep caldera and you enter that heavy volcanic cloud, your cell signal vanishes instantly.
It just cuts out.
The towers cannot penetrate the dense, wet mass of the mountain. We see this constantly. Visitors rent a car, wake up in sunny, bright Angra, drive enthusiastically into the interior by 10 a.m., and suddenly they are on a single-lane road surrounded by impenetrable white mist with 0 bars on their phone. We literally have reports in the dossier of tourists driving past the Algar do Carvão parking lot 3 or 4 times because they were entirely enveloped in a sudden volcanic cloud and couldn't see the massive entrance sign just 20 feet away.
It's hilarious to picture, but honestly terrifying if you aren't prepped for it and you're lost in a rental car. What is the actual fix?
Strategy. Drive the coast road first to get your bearings. If you're heading into the steep interior, depart before 9 a.m., before the atmospheric cloud base drops. Crucially, download the offline Terceira map on apps like Maps.me or Google Maps while you still have strong Wi-Fi at your guest house. And talk to your local hosts. Locals check the interior visibility out their windows daily. Ask them if the mountain is clear before you drive up.
And trap number 3, the low-season activity booking assumption.
This catches the savvy shoulder season travelers. Visitors arriving in November or March assume that because it's a quiet season, they can just casually walk up to any tour operator in the harbor and book a trip on the spot.
Which sounds logical.
The reality is that the island scales down mechanically. Whale-watching operators like Espaço Talassa and Futurismo drastically reduce their departures, sometimes dropping to weekends, only because they need a minimum number of passengers to cover the fuel.
Ah, right.
Algar do Carvão actually closes its gates entirely from November through March for annual maintenance and safety checks. The Misterios Negros Trail has sections that are completely closed off by rangers after heavy rain, and none of this is clearly flagged on standard automated global booking platforms.
So you fly all the way across the Atlantic specifically to stand inside a volcano. You drive up there, and there's literally a padlock on the gate. The fix.
Communication. Send a quick email or make a call 5 minutes before you enter your credit card details for your flights. Check the official Algar do Carvão website for specific closure dates. Use the contact forms for the whale-watching companies to confirm they are running boats that week. A single, polite email prevents a catastrophic gap in your itinerary.
All right, with those logistical threats neutralized, let's pivot to physical threats and overall traveler comfort. Let's talk about safety on the ground.
Terceira is phenomenally safe.
Yeah.
There is 0 organized gang infrastructure. Portugal as a whole consistently ranks in the top 10 safest countries globally, and Terceira is an isolated small island community.
So it's basically a small town vibe.
It operates on a very strong Catholic social fabric. Everyone knows everyone, everyone's grandmother knows everyone else, which acts as an incredibly powerful organic security system. Crime simply doesn't have a place to hide.
The only real warning I saw in our entire dossier is a minor note about petty theft during the absolute peak summer season near Praça Velha. Basically, just keep your phone off the cafe table, but honestly, that is just standard baseline European city advice. What about solo female travel?
It is incredibly comfortable and highly recommended. The old town is highly walkable, the historic streets are well lit at night, and the local culture is traditionally reserved and respectful.
That's great to hear.
There is no aggressive, alcohol-fueled nightlife circuit. You aren't dealing with the friction, the catcalling, or the chaos of places like Ibiza or Phuket. The pacing of the island is actually its biggest safety feature. It's a quiet, intensely respectful environment.
I have to ask, though, is that lack of nightlife a genuine safety feature, or is it just a recipe for a really boring solo trip if you're traveling alone?
If you define a successful trip entirely by the presence of thumping nightclubs and meeting strangers at 2 a.m., yes, you will be intensely bored. But if you are seeking a profound mental reset, if your idea of a perfect evening is reading a book in a sunny cafe, recovering from hiking a volcano, and having a quiet, uninterrupted glass of wine, then the safety and the profound calm become the main attraction. It's not a bug. The one real hurdle for solo travelers, as we mentioned earlier, is the financial necessity of hiring a car by yourself to see the interior.
And family comfort is high too, right?
Very high. The roads outside the main city of Angra are quiet. There is immense physical space for kids to run around at the agritourism spots. And the town of Praia de Vitoria actually has a flat, incredibly calm, life-guarded summer beach that is perfect for young kids who can't handle the rougher volcanic coastlines.
What about scams? Every destination on Earth has a scam.
It's remarkably clean. There are genuinely no named, organized scams here. No fake petitions, no bracelet tricks. The absolute closest thing to a scam is what we call the tourist premium. The mechanism is simple. If you sit down to eat alcatra right on Praça Velha, directly in the main tourist sightline facing the town hall, you might pay $22 to $25. If you walk 2 streets away into the residential grid to a local tasca, you pay the honest $12 to $14 rate. It's not a scam, it's just the global reality of paying for the view.
Knowing that it's incredibly safe and we have the logistics dialed in, what exactly are the massive highs and the brutal lows of the actual daily itinerary? Give me the absolute peaks first. What are the best moments?
The first absolute peak has to be Algar do Carvão.
Yeah.
For $7, you take a 45-minute walk down these carved, mossy steps directly into a massive magma chamber. The visual is staggering.
I bet.
The basalt walls look like abstract art. These rich, dripping bands of brown, black, and obsidian rock, naturally lit by sunlight, filtering down to the open roof of the cone. And at the very bottom, there's a silent, perfectly still underground lake. In terms of the price-to-experience ratio, it is unmatched anywhere in the Azores. It feels profound.
It sounds utterly otherworldly. Next up on the highs, the whales.
Whale watching here is elite, world-class level. You go out with established ethical operators like Heroísmo or Espaço Talassa. You pay $55 to $70, and you go out on a small, rigid, inflatable boat, a full lime. You are sitting incredibly low to the water.
So you're right in the action.
The geographical mechanism that makes this so special is that the Azores sit right over one of the deepest oceanic water columns in the entire Atlantic. This massive drop-off concentrates deep-diving marine life right off the coast. They boast a 98% sighting rate, and that is not marketing spin. That is biological reality.
Try to describe the visceral thrill of that 90% sighting rate. What does it actually feel like when it happens?
Imagine sitting in this small rubber boat, surrounded by the absolute vastness of the choppy mid-Atlantic. Suddenly, you hear this explosive, hollow rush of air. It's an intensely physical sound. You feel the vibration in your chest.
Wow.
And just 20 meters away, a 15-meter sperm whale breaches the surface to breathe. The sheer scale of the animal compared to your little boat, it humbles you instantly. It's a raw, wild, entirely unscripted encounter that a polished, glass-walled aquarium could never replicate.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
We also have the San Joaninas Festival in late June listed as a massive high. 10 days of music, fireworks, cheap $3 to $6 street food. And we need to touch on the traditional rope bullfighting because I think a lot of people hear bullfighting and immediately recoil.
And rightfully so, based on the Spanish model. But the Azorean Tirada Acorda is entirely different. It is non-fatal and deeply cultural. The mechanism is fascinating. A massive bull is let loose on a designated street, but it is controlled by a long, thick rope held by a group of traditional pastors or herdsmen. Local men try to dodge the bull. The bull is not killed. It is not stabbed.
Oh, that's completely different.
It's highly respected, rested afterward, and goes right back to the green pastures. It is a massive community event, a test of bravery rather than a blood sport.
And then there's the hiking as the final high.
Specifically, hiking the Misterios Negros Trail. It is totally free. You are walking directly through black lava fields, stepping past ancient, fragile lichen, and pushing through dense secondary forests. But it is vital to know that this is unpolished and wild. The terrain is rough, muddy, and jagged. It literally feels like you're exploring the earth right after it cooled.
Okay, those are the incredible highs. But we promised an honest, unflinching deep dive. Where does Terceira fail? What are the honest disappointments?
First disappointment, the beaches. If your entire idea of an island holiday requires lounging on pristine, soft white sand for 7 days with a cocktail, do not come here. Praia de Vitoria is perfectly fine for a quick swim, but the vast majority of the coastline is jagged, dramatic, unforgiving volcanic rock. It is incredibly photogenic, it's amazing for crashing waves, but it is not built for swimming or lounging.
Second honest disappointment, the nightlife.
It is dead by midnight, completely silent. There are no massive beach clubs, no international DJ sets, no bottle service.
Mhm.
You have excellent, quiet wine bars and relaxed cafes, and that is where it ends. If you want to party, you will be deeply disappointed.
And the third disappointment, which I actually want to push back on, the language gap. The dossier says that outside the main tourist square, the best local tascas have Portuguese-only menus, and the staff speak very limited English. Wait, doesn't everyone in Europe speak English now, especially anyone working in the hospitality sector?
In mainland capital cities like Lisbon or Rome, yes. But you have to understand the sociology of Terceira. It is an insulated island community with a much older demographic running these traditional multi-generational tascas. They have never needed to learn conversational English because they have always exclusively served their immediate neighbors.
Oh, I see.
They aren't part of the global hospitality sector. They're part of the local community. So pulling out Google Translate at the table isn't a failure to connect. It is a mandatory practical tool to navigate an environment that hasn't twisted itself to cater entirely to English-speaking tourists.
That is a fantastic reframing. The language barrier is actually a metric of authenticity, not a failure of service. It means you're in the right place. But if those honest disappointments, the jagged rocky beaches, the dead nightlife, having to use Google Translate to order dinner are absolute deal breakers for our listener, where should they go instead? Let's pivot and look at the alternatives.
Let's start with the big one right next door, São Miguel. It is the undeniable flagship island of the Azores. It has the famous Sete Theires twin lake caldera. It has the furnace thermal pools where they literally bury the cozito stew in the boiling volcanic soil to cook. It runs about $80 to $130 a day. Because it's the flagship, you get much better English infrastructure, clearer road signs, and a highly developed, seamless tourist circuit.
But there is a massive structural trade-off.
A huge one. You're trading isolation for crowds. In peak summer, you will absolutely queue for sights. You will wait in line for a photo. The hotels in Ponta Delgada are already hitting 130 to 180 for mid-range, and the island is showing clear, undeniable markers of over-tourism. For a first-timer who demands modern amenities and wants to quickly bag the classic postcard shots without any friction, São Miguel wins. But if you prioritize raw authenticity and budget, Terceira takes it easily.
What about a different island group altogether? What about Madeira?
Madeira is the natural, heavy-hitting alternative, especially for the UK and Australian markets. Daily costs there run $100 to $160. It has the beautiful UNESCO-listed Funchal Old Town, the incredibly dramatic Levada hikes through the mountains, and it is vastly more connected to the rest of the world. London has multiple direct flights a day.
Let me ask you this. If I am flying all the way from Sydney, Australia, which is a massive, exhausting, multi-day journey, shouldn't I just go to Madeira instead of dealing with the friction of Boston or Lisbon layovers just to reach Terceira?
You certainly could, and the seamless connectivity makes Madeira incredibly tempting for long-haul travelers. But you have to look at the economic reality of what has happened to Madeira's prices. Since 2021, driven heavily by a booming digital nomad visa scheme and massive, relentless media exposure, prices have surged.
Right. It's gotten
A
huge.
standard mid-range hotel in Funchal is now $130 to $180. A simple dinner is $25 to $35. The mechanism here is clear. Terceira's prices right now in 2026 will look exactly like Madeira's prices did back in 2021 before the boom. You are essentially looking at a time machine. Terceira wins on pure, unadulterated budget and untouched authenticity. Madeira wins if you prioritize seamless flight infrastructure and a massive cosmopolitan restaurant scene.
We have all the data, we have the historical context, we have the comparisons. Now it is time to synthesize this and give the listener the final verdicts. Break it down for us, persona by persona. Is Terceira worth it?
Let's start with a backpacker verdict. This is a yes, but with strict, unavoidable expectations. $55 to $70 a day is an unbeatable price point for a UNESCO-level European destination. $7 to stand in a volcano, $12 for a legendary Alcatraz stew.
Yeah.
But the caveat is ironclad. You must be financially willing to rent a car occasionally to see the best of the remote interior, and you have to accept that there is zero rowdy social hostile scene.
What about the mid-range traveler?
This is the clearest, most emphatic yes
Yes.
on the entire board. 120 to 160 a day gets you stunning heritage boutique stays, fine local dining, and world-class intimate whale watching. It represents incredibly strong, almost unbelievable value in today's market.
Right.
I will play devil's advocate here, though. That pristine value only holds up if you meticulously plan around the logistics traps we discussed. If you arrogantly assume there's a bus, get stranded at the airport, or get your rental car stuck in a volcanic cloud, that value feels a lot less magical.
Very true. Preparation protects the value. The family verdict.
A yes, but for a very specific configuration. It is best for families with kids under 12. At 280 to 350 a day, staying in rural quintas with plenty of space, swimming at the calm Praia de Vitoria beach, walking safely inside a dormant volcano, it's absolute magic. The total UK trip comes in around $5,500 to $6,500, which is fantastic. But older teenagers looking for vibrant nightlife, shopping, or big lively beach clubs will be intensely, vocally bored.
The luxury verdict.
A conditional yes.
Yeah.
280 to 350 a night at the Pousada convent is an absolute steal for genuine, deeply rooted historic heritage and intimacy. But it is a massive failure if your definition of luxury requires sprawling modern spas, massive infinity pools, and constant resort pampering.
And finally, the digital nomad or solo traveler.
A yes, with a fiber optic caveat. For $1,900 to $2,400 a month, eligible for the Portuguese D8 visa, you get incredible calm, blazing fast internet, and zero crime. But there is virtually no community of peers. If you get lonely and need to network, you need to be financially and mentally prepared to book a $180 return flight to Lisbon just to see a crowd of like-minded people.
All right, that brings us to the end of the analysis. But before we sign off, we always like to step back and look at the bigger picture. We've talked about prices and logistics, but what does this all mean for how we travel?
Here's the final thought I want to leave you with, and it builds on everything we've unpacked today. We live in a bizarre era where digital algorithms actively and aggressively homogenize global travel.
So true.
Millions of people are being funneled by their screens to the exact same 5 Instagram coordinates, waiting in the exact same lines to take the exact same photo. In that kind of world, maybe true luxury isn't a 5-star mega resort with a dedicated butler. Maybe true luxury is simply arriving at a place like Terceira just before the rest of the world figures it out. It forces us to ask a difficult question. Can we learn to actually value the unpolished, the quiet, and the slow? Or are we just destined, by our own habits, to turn every beautiful, quiet island on Earth into another overcrowded São Miguel?
If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.